I caught up with Rich McCormick, who is a member of the U.S. House of Representatives, a top Republican leader, and also the co-chair of the U.S.-India caucus. Listen in. Joining us right now is the co-chair of the India caucus in the U.S. Congress, Rich McCormick. Congressman McCormick, thank you very much for joining us here on CNBC TV-18. Let me begin by asking you about the expectations from India as far as the Republican Party is concerned and the Trump administration is concerned. We're negotiating a trade deal, but on a broader strategic level, what is the kind of alignment that the party and the government is seeking?
Well, I think if you look at Prime Minister Modi and Trump, they have an age-old reputation for being very friendly. When Prime Minister Modi, I believe, came to Houston, standing room only. Everybody was just packing it in. If you see Prime Minister Modi, his popularity amongst the diaspora here in America, it's through the roof. When we had him come and speak to the House, the stands were just lined. We had tons of people trying to get there that from my district, which has about 14% Indian diaspora, over 100,000 live in my district. I think the second largest demographic minority in the United States, the wealthiest, by the way, per capita by far, the most successful in the most successful nation. Looking at the future of India and what it brings to the table, an economy that's expanding by about 6 to 8% every year, will be the third largest economy in the world within the next 5 years, which is a huge trading partner with the United States and which should supplant China when it comes to production. We want to make sure that we're working with a country that sees the world similar to us, a country that has a constitution similar to ours, the world's largest democracy and the world's oldest democracy. Watching the synergy between two nations that have common interests in securing a region that's maybe one of the most explosive and important regions in the world, where 70% of the world's trade goes through that corridor, where 70% of the world's population lives, and where a vast amount of people and wealth all originate from, and so many people migrate to the United States. We need a strong ally in that region, especially with China, a peer rival, to make sure that we keep them militarily and economically in check.
Right. I would also like to ask you about the bill that certain congressmen and certain senators are looking to bring, and this is about imposing 500% tariffs on countries which import Russian oil. Now, India could be impacted, China could be impacted as well. Would you also support such a bill, and do you consider this as a need of the hour?
So, when we're in war, absolutely. And I've said this before, I've been very open about this. The one criticism I have of India is they're literally funding the war against Ukraine. Now, Ukraine is very special to me. It's a top 5 country in strategic wealth when it comes to titanium, aluminum, steel, grain, uranium, cobalt, you name it. They have a ton of resources. Do you want Russia to really use that and give it to countries that are poor food, exactly like Iran, North Korea, and China? When Europe's right there, when you're knocking on the door of a NATO country, when we actually made a commitment to them when they gave their nuclear arms to protect them. This war, which is killing thousands of people, hundreds of thousands of people, probably over 1 million people, is being funded by oil money. Who's buying the propensity of oil? India. I love Prime Minister Modi. I love what he's trying to do for his economy. I get it. I know it's a hardship. But this war would be over in less than a year had it not been funded by the oil bought by India, and then sold back to Europe in large part. So I don't just blame India. It shouldn't be just India punished, by the way. It should be the European countries buying it back from India that didn't produce it at the beginning. European countries are hypocrites when they buy Russian-produced oil. The United States should be opening up its oil industry to make it just as cheap as Russia does. Maybe not just as cheap, but close. That way you take maybe a little bit of a hit, but you're doing the right thing, you end the war, and then eventually Russia can sell their oil again when they stop doing the wrong thing. Right. But this is our leverage. The United States is the biggest consumer in the world. We have the largest economy in the world.
Do you feel there's enough consensus to push through such a bill?
I hope so, but if not, all I can do is my part and make my case as to why this is. India is a great trade partner. They need our business. We want their business. Collaboratively, we can do great things. But everybody's going to have a vested interest in something other than just themselves. I understand Prime Minister Modi is just as nationalistic as President Trump is, and I get that. But that's why we leverage our friendships. And if you and I are friends and you're doing something I don't like, I'm going to bring it to your case. I'm going to say, look, I'm going to make this a little harder on you unless you do what I want, because we're friends. You understand what my motivation is. And I think that's where we're at right now.
Right. Do you feel there is a larger understanding about the fact that India is taking steps to reduce the trade deficit? The amount of oil that we buy from the United States, that has gone up. There are going to be defense deals as well. Do you think that when it comes to the trade partnership, it is now possible for the Trump administration not just look at through the trade deficit lens, but to see that, yes, there are attempts being made to reduce the deficit as much as possible?
You know, I'm not as big on trade deficit, worrying about that, because when you have a good product, you can sell it, as long as there's not tariffs that inhibit that. Now, traditionally, we've had 2 to 3% tariffs on India. They've had 13 to 15% on ours. If you reduce the tariffs, then whatever deficit we have is natural. You know, I'm not going to force you to buy something that's too expensive and you don't need. It's up to us to produce a product that you want to consume in India. So I don't worry about the deficit. What I don't want is disparaging tariffs. What I want to make sure is we have a good relationship and understand what our ultimate objectives is, and that is to work together. If we have that, I'm not going to force any other issue. It's free trade. I just want free and equal trade, where there's not punishment on one side and not on the other side. And I think that's what ultimate President Trump is trying to get to. I always say the business of America is business. We can do that. Everything else will work it out. You're never going to have equal trade with everybody. It's not possible. India has a cheaper labor market. They have more industrial production in certain products, and we have oil and stuff like that, as you mentioned. I think that can be increased to offset another problem we have. But I think it should be natural, not forced and contrived.
Right. I would like to also ask you about the defense partnership, something that you've spoken earlier. Donald Trump and J.D. Vance have both spoken about how the U.S. could possibly look at selling F-35s to India as well. When it comes to the broader defense partnership, India is pitching for co-production and co-development to meet our domestic needs as well. What do you think that we can do, and what is it that the U.S. would like to offer? So
I think maybe when it comes to F-35, we're not going to probably advance it as much as India wants to. Collaboratively, if you want to come up with something we can incorporate in the F-35, go for it. But it's not like India is going to bring anything to the table for what we already have. If you want to improve it, that's great. If you want to share that, that's great. When it comes to production, that's also fine. But one of the laws that India has, as far as I understand, is they have to have 51% ownership of anything that they produce in the military, and I think that's going to inhibit them from owning F-35s or any other advanced technologies. If you want to have AUKUS-like equality, just like we do with Australia and Great Britain and a few other countries, if you want to share our secrets, you have to understand we're going to take the lead on those things. Now, if you want to collaborate, just like Israel, Israel doesn't demand that, and they've developed a lot of their own products, and we've interchanged with their technologies. But to demand that you own 51% of anything that's going to be produced there, I just don't think that's a fair thing. So, like I said, maybe I'm misunderstanding how the demands are or what the realities are, but I think sometimes we're going to own it, sometimes you're going to own it. We can collaborate together. We can negotiate each individual deal, but I don't think we should have a collective bargaining agreement that's going to inhibit one nation over another, because India's on the uprise. But I don't think it's fair to demand anything just for access to your market. That's what China did, and that's what got China in hot water with a lot of countries around the world.
My final question on the trade deal. How bullish are you about having an early trade deal, and what would be the expectation as to the tariff levels?
So, expectation versus reality. I think President Trump has stated he wants a 10% tariff across the boards. I'm a 0-0 guy. I want to see no tariffs. I want to see fair trade. That means you don't inhibit me from selling products in your country. I don't inhibit you from selling it in my country. That's ideal to me. Now, to President Trump, I think 10% is what he wants to have. And if Prime Minister Modi has a 10% reciprocal, that's fair, as long as everybody has to say. Both governments wet their beak, if you will. I'm not a big government guy. I'd rather see no taxes and free trade. But as long as it's equitable, I think we can expect that. I think India has already shown they want to work well with us, that they're friendly with us. They see a huge market in us. And I think we see a huge market in India, as well as the biggest expanding market in the world, especially on digital economy. It's important to include India, and I think the less regulation and taxation we have on that, to include tariffs, the better off both countries are going to be for each other.
All right. Congressman McCormicks, thank you so much for joining us.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Great talking to you.